House will be in order. Committee on Environment and Agriculture, to which was referred House Bill 56, relative to permits for siting of new landfills, comes without recommendation. Senator Bixby moves ought to pass with amendment 0772H, printed in House Record 16, page 56. A division has been requested. Members, take your seats on the amendment. The motion before us is on amendment 0772H, printed in Record 16, page 56. This is a division. House will be in order. The question is on the amendment. This is a division vote. The chair recognizes Representative Davis for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know this amendment was offered in committee and failed in a tie vote, and Mr. Speaker, if I know that parts of this amendment are unclear to the Department of Environmental Services and to members of our committee, and also, Mr. Speaker, if I know shorter PIs are more favorable than longer ones, Mr. Speaker, would I then press the red button to defeat this amendment?
Chair recognizes Representative Stapleton for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that this amendment has an important addition, adding sand and gravel aquifers to the class of waters to be protected, and if I know that permeation of soils with pollutants and leachate can eventually reach our vital drinking and natural recreational waters, and if I know that serious contamination of water has already occurred in places like East Palestine, Ohio, Flint, Michigan, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and even in our own Merrimack, New Hampshire with PFAS, as well as other places, and if I know that we can measure, guard, and remedy ground contamination movement with this amendment and bill before it reaches our water resources, would I therefore now press the green button to also protect the aquifer water in this amendment? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion before us is the amendment 0772H. This is a division vote. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. The voting stations are open for 30 seconds. If all members present had an opportunity to vote, House will attend the state of the vote. 223 voting yea, 155 voting nay. The amendment is adopted. The motion before us now is ought to pass as amended. Chair recognizes Representative Sofakaitis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. New Hampshire does not have a landfill capacity problem. It has a trash problem. It has a very big trash problem. And part of that problem is that the state of Massachusetts is closing the availability to its landfills. And so businesses are trucking the trash up to us. So this bill is going to try to say where we are going to put the landfills. We've had this bill for 4 years in my committee, and actually we received more mail than I had ever received in all my years here. And I live in Nashua, southern border, and I drove up there to Bethlehem and Whitefield so I could see what was going on at Forest Lake. And we had a constituent meeting in the middle of frozen Forest Lake. And what I learned is that those people are relying on us. We're the ones who were sent here to take care of them. There's very small towns with not a lot of money and a big corporation that was going to tell people that we need yet another landfill so that they have a place to put their own trash. From other states. We don't need trash from other states to come here. And we don't need to have landfills just built where we don't want them. And so I would ask that you would join me in supporting all the residents north of the Notch and vote yes for Bill 56.
Chair recognizes Representative Creighton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. I rise in opposition to the ought-to-pass motion for HB 56. The committee agreed wholeheartedly with the importance of protecting our surface and groundwater. There have been extensive studies on how to clean up and make sure that the landfills are safe. However, during testimony, the Department of Environmental Service was adamant that HB 66 would tie their hands with regard to developing the effective systems needed to properly monitor landfills and protect our ground and surface water. HB 56 applies a one-size-fits-all solution to a complex problem that varies from site to site. According to testimony, New Hampshire landfills are currently safe. There are no landfills currently in the pipeline for approval of this lengthy process. We need to protect our water from potential landfill contamination, but we need to make sure that our actions are well coordinated and have the intended consequences. We heard in testimony that something has to be done, even if it's not exactly right. HB 56 is a case of ready, fire, aim. It is trying to set standards for landfills, but they will not have the desired effect. Please join me pressing the red button to oppose OTP so that another motion can be made. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes Representative Bixby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. Currently, the Department of Environmental Services rules set the minimum distance from a landfill to a surface water body at 200 feet. New Hampshire landfills annually produce between 2 million and 50 million gallons of leachate, which typically contains many toxic substances, including PFAS. Although required double liners reduce the chance of a leak, the risk of a leak or spill over the multi-decade lifetime of a landfill remains significant. The answer is not better liner technology. Choosing the right location is the answer. Under HB56, the minimum distance from a landfill to a surface water body is based on how far a leak would travel in 5 years. 5 years provides enough time to detect and begin to remediate any leak. The amendment provides a very clear grandfather clause written in consultation with landfill industry stakeholders that says this bill will not limit future expansions at any currently operating landfill. It's also the case that all currently operating landfills would meet the setback requirement within this bill. DES was not supportive of this bill, claiming that all aspects of landfill siting belong in rules because everything about a landfill siting is so site-specific. Any limitation in statute would prevent them from issuing variances. They seem to misunderstand the respective roles of the legislature and the departments. We need to be clear. Our job is to set principles. Theirs is to make rules consistent with the principles. Siting landfills only where they will not harm groundwater and surface water is an overriding principle for our state's economy, our tourism, and our health. If a potential landfill site fails this principle, it should not get consideration. For example, a gravel pit that would put a potential leak within 6 months of Forest Lake and within 12 months of the Ammonoosuc River should never be considered as a potential landfill site. Yet, following their current siting rules, DES allowed a company to spend several years and a lot of money applying for a permit for that location. The request has been withdrawn, but nothing in DES rules says that can't be resubmitted. If HB56 had been in force at the time, they could have determined with a few tests that the site was not suitable and saved a lot of money and effort. Putting principles like groundwater and surface water protection in statute provides regulatory predictability that industry needs. Passing HB56 will provide the House position that there needs to be a clear upfront indicator for landfill siting and that strong protections for our groundwater and surface water bodies are critical for our health and our economy. As my colleague from Claremont has said, water is life. Thank you.
And Bixby has asked for a division vote. Members, take your seats. This will be a division vote. Motion before us is ought to pass as amended on House Bill 56. This is a division vote. Chair recognizes Representative Arnold Davis for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know, according to testimony, current operating landfills in Berlin, in Rochester, and in Bethlehem would have likely passed the test in the proposed language in this bill, leading me to believe that current Department of Environmental Services rules for siting landfills are presently very successful. And, Mr. Speaker, if I know landfill siting criteria using hydrogeologic conditions should be studied more as to how it can be correctly incorporated into statute. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, if I know that the ability to grant time to be taken off of the leachate travel time in site evaluation from 5 years to 3 years is vague and lacks details for the Department of Environmental Services to follow, then, Mr. Speaker, would I press the red button so another motion can be offered?
Chair recognizes Representative Simon for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that landfills are the natural consequence of the very high standard of living that we enjoy as a people, But Mr. Speaker, if I know that landfills come with inherent risks and that this body on a regular basis has spoken and said that we don't think that the current standards protect us enough. And finally, Mr. Speaker, if I know that if our water sources are compromised, that we have no standard of living at all, would I then press the green button and OTP this bill? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion before us is ought to pass as amended and House Bill 56. This is a division vote. If you're in favor, you'll press the green button. If you're opposed, you'll press the red button. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. Of all members present and an opportunity to vote, House will attend the state of the vote. 224 voting yea, 155 voting nay. Committee report is adopted.